Hey gang, Canadian computer collector here. I had a bath earlier and I am feeling spry. Though I am pantless, today I have some great news. We are going to be working on an Apple IIc that has significantly yellowed, but is in fact a functional machine. Now, I've already made the mistake of taking this apart and then putting it back together again so that I could get B-roll, so we won't be testing it in the first half, but we will be testing it in the second half.
We will test it in the second half.
Plans for this one are to strip it down, Retrobrite the plastic, get it back to its original color, try and do something about this awful looking handle, and just give it a general cleanup. Because it is working, I don't need to mess with it really, and it's an Apple IIc, so I don't need to mess with it really. Alright, well let's get to it. Welcome gang, I hope you enjoyed that bird. Now it's time to get down to business. So actually, we kind of started this project on a live stream called Project Ketchup, which you can see on the channel, featuring Steve from Mac 84. There's a deep track. Ruben stuttered. Let's just make sure. Ooh, we got some weird crap happening to the handle of this thing. Looks like clear coat or something's peeling off. So basically, in this video, we're going to be cutting back and forth between the live stream just for the disassembly part, because actually the footage you're seeing now, I also took during the live stream while I was breaking the machine down, kind of knowing that I wanted to do a video of this whole machine's Retrobrite restoration process. Anyway, so here we are taking off the top case, and just about to pull the disc out. Don't you know?
These are the YouTube secrets here, guys.
Whenever there's dead air, just burp. Alright, here's our disk drive. A little belt. Hello.
Hello, little disk drive.
Hello! So there you go. Steve's working on a project of his own. I think it's a blue SCSI drive. It's worth checking out that live stream. It's a good one. Not just Steve, but Jay from House of Moth drops in. Anyway, here we are without the keyboard or the disk drive. Nice little close-up on the 1983 Apple copyright logo. Very cool stuff. Shout out to the 65 CO2. 2 screws, and we can slide out the power supply. She is really in there.
Really in there.
Cool. Power supply's out. One thing I should mention is Steve and I are very musical gentlemen. Whenever we get together, it's nothing but hot tracks. Several screws come out and the logic board is now free. What's underneath the logic board? Paper, of course. Trying not to ruin this paper here. Really working hard at that. Really working hard or hardly working there. Oh, freaking holy crap, bud. There we go, one left. I hope you enjoyed that taste of Canadiana. I just wanted to say that talking like a weirdo is definitely a part of the fabric of our nation, part of our culture. And so is heavy rain sometimes. Man, it was raining hard when I was taking this thing apart. So at first I took a photograph of this label because I thought I'd have to reprint it, and then I managed to peel it off in one piece. So after a nice bath over and over again with isopropyl alcohol and a plastic spudger tool, I got the remnants off, and I figured, you know what, we might be able to actually save this serial number. So we'll see how things go later on. We're now entering the ASMR portion of the video. I feel like I should be talking in low, dulcet tones, like a weirdo, to make you tingle inside. So now that you feel all tingly and confused from the audio, let's just stop that. I've got a bunch of clean pieces, and I'm just going to give them a quick little dry here before we get them ready to go into the Retrobrite bath. You want everything to be as clean as possible when you stick it in for Retrobrite, because you're using UV light to cure the plastic. So any kind of dirt or obstruction is going to block the UV light from actually touching the plastic, and therefore you'll be left with spots. Boy, there are very few things more satisfying than the sound of water on water. You know, it's so satisfying that I might just urinate in my office chair. Anyway, here we are, submerging our pieces of Apple IIc into a hydrogen peroxide bath. We just poured some warm water in there to help raise the level a little bit. It had been sitting for a couple days and evaporated a bit, so on we go, weighing things down with a big old padlock sitting inside a Ziploc bag, just so that we can get as much UV light in there as possible, even though we're using a giant, heavy padlock to weigh it down. Now, when you're using weight like that, you need to make sure that you're moving it around periodically. It's okay to put an object like that on top during Retrobrite, so long as that you're moving it every 4 or 5 hours. Now, we only use about 18 hours of time on a project like this because I'm already using a pretty heavy level of hydrogen peroxide. We're using 12%. So this is salon grade, so it's the good stuff. With everything wrapped back up, we can put the lid back on and move on to the next part of this thing. It's time to take a look at everything, do a bit of an inventory, and see what's left to do in this project. Now, we're very close to the finish line, but there is one part that I have left to the end. And no, it's not this wonderful cat. It is the keyboard. So this is obviously a tedious job, and actually, when I was pulling this apart, one of the keys broke, and I thought that I broke it until I looked up close, and it looks like there was actually glue residue on both the keycap and the part of the keyboard where the switch is. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, I wonder if someone broke this already and tried to glue it back together. But nonetheless, we washed the keys and gave a bit of an isopropyl alcohol bath to the switches. And after we get everything nice and clean, we're going to actually try and reattach that broken key first. And I have a plan for how to do that without hurting anything, and in a way that's non-invasive. So I know that there are certain types of adhesives that bond glue together almost like a weld. So we're going to use something that is within the line of super glue family, but it's not permanent, and it could be removed easily if someone wanted to do an actual replacement down the line. So first steps are to just see how the broken keycap sits, and it actually sits in a groove, so it was a bit of a clean break, which is good news. We can guide it back into the right place. So here I am trying to figure out where that place is, and this is me using the gelatin super glue from Gorilla Glue or whatever it is, and that stuff is great because it doesn't drip, it doesn't run, it just sticks where it needs to, and what do you know? Success! Time to put together the rest of the keyboard. Which is always a joy. I actually really enjoy putting these things back together. I think all the tedious scrubbing of each keycap is worth it in the end when you get to put it back together. It's like a puzzle that you've pretty much figured out the ending to, and you're just racing to get the last pieces in. Anyway, time to look at the gross handle. This is the kind of crap I was talking about. It looked like there was a clear coat peeling off, so, you know, my first thoughts were to try and peel it, but let's just hit it with some 99% ISO and see what happens. Turns out that that's the right answer. The ISO made quick work of that. And in the end, I ended up having a beautiful handle for this machine. Power supply just needed a couple quick wipes. That's what he said. That's what she said. I don't know. When they went to the bathroom. There was glue residue on the back of the little Apple logo, so I grabbed some ISO and a thick brush and just brushed it off. Next up, we're going to put this disk drive back together, now that we've done a little Retrobrite to the actual plastic grill. I'd say this thing is going to look pretty darn slick when it's done. And putting this thing back together was kind of interesting. I had to watch old videos of me taking it apart because I'd completely forgotten how to put it back together already. But luckily I didn't screw it up, and it seems to be working just fine. A couple screws go back on there, and then this thing can jump into its shell, which has this funny little flap on one of the sides. It must be a ground. Next up is a wipe down with an anti-static brush for the logic board. Just get rid of some of the excess dust. It was already really clean, so I didn't want to muck around with it too much. And now it's time to put everything back together. So let's start with the speaker. This I did muck around with quite a bit. This is just like a short little montage of me trying to get it in until I basically pulled out the hammer chisel method and just tapped it into place gently. That actually worked. And with that in place, we can slide in the RF shield and the RF paper. Make sure that they're all in the right spot. Logic board slides right in on top of all of that. You just gotta dig the one corner in where the audio stuff is. These are grounding rings, as I was told on live stream. Speaker plugs in, and then a few screws to get the logic board securely into its spot. Next up, we're gonna slide in the power supply box, and and then 2 screws secure it into place. Then we have our beautifully cleaned keyboard with its retrobrited spacebar, just 1 little clip in the bottom there to activate it. And let's kind of take a minute to see how far we've come, you know? Just how much we've evolved on this journey as humans. Anyway, here goes the disk drive, and you'll note that I did not plug it in, and that's going to come back to haunt me later. Handle goes in place, Apple logo gets a little bit of that glue and right back into its spot. Same thing, if anyone wanted to remove that in the future, they could, because it's not going to put up too big a fight. So now it's time to slide the shirt back on the machine. Top case goes on, it hooks in at the front, and then just kind of worms its way over the I/O ports at the back. And that's how you take it off, actually. You just sort of lift it past the I/O ports and kind of does the rest for you after that. In this case, you don't want to break anything, so you just kind of gently convince it over and over. Move your hands around it and give it a bit of a gentle massage until everything is in where it should be. Now, we have to put some rubber feet back on, and I figured, I don't want to super glue rubber, so I'm going to use a glue gun. We are putting these things into place. This is not a great solution, as I learned. One of them came off. I had to re-glue it, like, basically immediately after. So, hot tip for any of you who are gluing rubber feet. And then with some spray adhesive, I managed to slip our original serial number back on. So the whole thing is looking pretty friggin' clean, and I think it's time for a test. First, we gotta plug it in, I guess. Need power, for sure. Okay, now, if you know Apple IIcs, we are missing a sound already. So the machine works, which is good, but the disk drive noise didn't happen, and I remembered I didn't plug it in. So we took the top case off, plugged in the disk drive, shoved it right back where it needed to be, and then popped the case back on. And that's the noise we were looking for. So all is well in the Apple IIc world now, just provided we get a picture, which, you know, of course we are, because it worked last time. And
all right!
Little celebratory thumbs up, and let's just take a look to see how far we've come. You know, this is how yellow it really was, and this is what it looks like now. It looks brand new. Now, there was only one real hookup in this whole restoration process, and that was that the 8040 text ended up getting smudged a bit. And I'm going to say that that's probably because of the initial isopropyl alcohol bath that I gave it on livestream when I was just sort of indiscriminately scrubbing it down to remove dirt. See, this is what I'm talking about. That I think I caused initially with too much ISO, and you know what? Lesson learned. I'm not going to do that again, but I'm still really proud of how this project turned out, so thank you so much. As you can see, we have a nice, bright Apple IIc to call our own, and just for fun, I've got another older one that was not quite as yellowed as this guy was when we started this project, but I have it out just for comparison so you can see. Yeah, grab them by the handles. The difference is stark, but this one used to be far more dark. Also, don't forget, if you made it this far and you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. It means a lot for this channel and a guy like me, and even more so if you can spread the word and let your friends know, I would be greatly appreciative. I want to thank all my patrons for all the support that they show the channel. You too can join the Patreon for $1 a month and get your name in the credits and a shout out in each video. So without further ado, why don't we shout out the patrons? So big thanks to Andy, David G, Larry C, Justin M, Ron's Computer Vids, Jason S, Adam M, Groupride, Dave's Vintage Apple Tech, Trina C, Garth B, Mac84, Ethan P, and Ron R. Thank you so much to all of you. And if you want to join that list of upstanding citizens for $1 a month, you can. Check out the links in the description below. If Patreon's not your thing, check out Buy Me a Coffee. I've had a lot of tea today, and my heart is vibrating inside my body. So we're going to go ahead and call that one it. Don't forget to check us out on social media. If you like to breathe air and drink water, you're just like me. So join us on the Canadian Computer Collector most of the time. I think we're doing bi-weekly releases right now. That may all change again in the fall. Yeah.
What's up?